I began to realize that it would be more accurate for those of us who consider ourselves pro-life to call ourselves pro-birth or anti-abortion. Sometimes we have been more concerned with life before birth than life after birth. It is a strange thing to live in a world where we can be pro-military, pro-guns, pro-executions, and still say we are pro-life, as long as we stand against abortion. But alas, that is where we find ourselves. When I think back to those years in high school when abortion consumed so much of my energy, I realized that I had lots of ideologies, but few, if any, relationships with people whose lives were impacted by those ideologies. Ideologies alone don't require much of us, and mine hadn't required much of me. I had a lot to say about abortion, but eventually it occurred to me that I couldn't think of a single person I knew who had actually had one, or at least anyone who felt comfortable telling me about it. In retrospect, this is understandable since I had said out loud that I thought abortion doctors deserved the death penalty. As is too often the case, I was good at talking about issues, but not as good about having compassion for the people directly affected by those issues. Sometimes our theology or our political opinions become an obstacle to love rather than a conduit of love, and that is a problem. We cannot talk about issues while avoiding the people who are affected by them. We can't talk at each other. We've got to talk with each other. A lovely question. This book is not just about issues. It's about people. It's about asking, what does love require of us? Ideologies do not demand much of us, but relationships do. What does love require of us is a lovely question because it is a call to action. Asking that question changed everything for me because what love required of me was more than a saying on a bumper sticker, a t-shirt, or a yard sign. It required proximity and relationships. It required drawing near and leaning into those who have been impacted by the issues. In our neighborhood in North Philadelphia, gun violence is more than statistics. It has names and stories and tears. We have murals and memorials on nearly every corner to honor the lives lost to guns. Gun violence is about the 3-year-old hit with a stray bullet on Malta Street. It's about the mother who collapsed onto the sidewalk when she got news her little boy had been killed. To me, gun violence is so much more than talking points because it affects neighbors whom I love. That's why I'm inviting you to join me in asking this question about every issue. What does love require of us? It's the same with the death penalty. For me, the death penalty is not just a political issue. It's a reality that nearly took the life of Derek Jameson, one of my close friends who was sentenced to die for a crime he had nothing to do with. He spent 2 decades on death row, had 6 execution dates, and was hours from execution when he was finally proved innocent. Listening to Derek describe what it was like to watch his friends, more than 50 of them, be killed by the state one by one, and to constantly wonder whether he would be next, that does something to you. When you hear a mother say that the first time she kissed her son in 30 years was after his execution because they weren't allowed to have contact visits, that does something to you. When I think about war, it's no longer something I pontificate in some abstract sense. It's about the children I held in the Al-Manzar Pediatric Hospital in Baghdad. Their bodies were riddled with fragments from bombs dropped on them by the United States during the 2003 invasion of Iraq. I'm still willing to talk about just war theory with people who care about that, but what changed my heart was not just losing an argument, it was seeing the devastation of war firsthand. I became convinced that love just doesn't do that.